Welcome to my channel, and this is Enjoy with Kitten Story. The wise king and the humble craftsman. Once upon a time, in a distant kingdom surrounded by towering mountains on one side and a vast sea on the other, there lived a wise king named King Zane. His kingdom was prosperous, and King Zane was known for his wisdom and justice. Despite the great wealth and vast power at his disposal, Zane was always searching for a deeper meaning to life. He did not feel fully content, as if something was missing, though he didn't know what it was. One night, the king sat in his grand palace, contemplating the moonlight reflecting off the palace walls, adorned with gold and silver. He felt an emptiness inside. Despite all that he possessed, he had not found true happiness. He thought about it for a long time and decided to do something he had never done before. The king resolved to disguise himself as a common man and wander through his kingdom unnoticed. He wanted to see how his people lived, away from the royal spotlight, and discover the secret to the happiness he longed for. The next morning, King Zane dressed in simple clothes and left the palace without guards or an entourage. He walked through villages and fields, observing the simple lives of the people. He saw farmers working hard in the fields and fishermen gathering their nets by the sea. He noticed that despite their simplicity, they seemed happy and at peace, unlike the way he felt as a king. During his travels, he reached a small village on the outskirts of the kingdom. The village was far from the bustling capital and lived in quiet tranquility. In the heart of the village, the king saw a small workshop where a humble craftsman named Yusuf worked. Yusuf was a modest man, known in the village for his skill and quiet nature. Though his workshop was simple, the tools he made were of high quality, and everyone in the village bought from him whatever they needed, be it farming tools or household items. The king approached the workshop and stood watching Yusuf, who was busy working with his rough hands. Yusuf was transforming pieces of wood and metal into useful tools with obvious skill. His hands moved swiftly and precisely, but without haste. Every movement was deliberate, as though Yusuf was in perfect harmony with his work. The king sat quietly on a wooden stool near the workshop, watching Yusuf in silence. Curiosity drove him to understand how a man living in such simplicity could seem so content and happy. After some time, Yusuf turned to the king, whom he didn't recognize, and said, "Welcome, my brother. It seems you are new to this village. Do you need something?" The king smiled and replied, "No, I just came to watch you work. You seem to love what you do." Yusuf chuckled softly and said, "Yes, I find my happiness in what I create with my hands. Work brings me satisfaction and peace." The king then asked, "But you work hard all day, and yet you have so little. Don't you ever wish to have more money or live a more luxurious life?" Yusuf smiled again and calmly replied, "My friend, happiness isn't in what we own, but in what we create. Every tool I make with my hands is a part of my soul, and when I see it in the hands of people, serving them, I find my happiness. Money may come and go, but true wealth lies in self-contentment." King Zane was astonished by Yusuf's wisdom. He pondered Yusuf's words for a moment, then said, "But don't you fear that one day you might need money? What if you face a problem you can't solve? What will you do if you fall ill or encounter a great difficulty?" Yusuf responded with a serene smile. "Worrying doesn't change the future, just as money doesn't buy peace of mind. As long as I work hard and live simply, I trust that I will find what I need when the time comes. I have enough for today, and tomorrow is in God's hands. If you spend your time worrying, you miss the beautiful moments in life." The king was deeply moved by Yusuf's words, yet he was still puzzled. He thought to himself, "How can a simple man like Yusuf live with such contentment and peace, while I, the king who possesses everything, still feel this emptiness inside?" The king spent the entire day with Yusuf, watching him craft his tools and talking about life, work, and satisfaction. As the day passed, the king began to feel something new. He started to understand what he had been missing. He had lacked a connection to what was real and simple. In that moment, he realized that great wealth and luxurious palaces don't bring happiness, but rather satisfaction with oneself and honest work. As the sun set, the king felt it was time to return to his palace. But before he left, he decided to reveal his identity to Yusuf. The king stood before Yusuf and said, "O wise craftsman, today you have taught me a great lesson. I am not the simple man you think I am. I am King Zayn, and I came here seeking a deeper meaning to happiness. Even though I am a king and possess great wealth, I have not been happy. But after speaking with you, I realize now that true happiness isn't in what we own, but in how we live our lives." Yusuf was momentarily surprised, but he soon smiled and said, "Wisdom comes from experience, Your Majesty. Wealth does not make a person happy, but contentment and simplicity do. Live your life simply, and you will find happiness in the simplest of things." King Zayn returned to his palace, but he was no longer the same. His outlook on life had changed completely. From that day forward, King Zayn decided to live a simpler and more humble life. He spent more time with his people, listening to their problems and needs. He used his wealth to help the poor and needy, and instead of seeking to accumulate more money, he focused on spreading justice and prosperity throughout his kingdom. King Zayn became known throughout the land not for his wealth or power, but for his humility and wisdom. His story with Yusuf the craftsman became a legendary tale passed down among the people, teaching that happiness isn't found in outward appearances or in gathering riches, but in contentment and living a simple life. As for the humble craftsman Yusuf, he remained a close friend of King Zayn. The king would visit him from time to time in his small workshop, where they would talk about life, work, and philosophy. Yusuf continued his work as always, finding joy in crafting simple tools for the villagers. He would always say, "As long as I work honestly and live peacefully, I am richer than any king." Over the years, the story of King Zayn and Yusuf became a lesson to everyone who heard it. People realized that wealth and power meant nothing if there was no inner contentment. The story taught people that true happiness lies in simplicity and how we approach life, and that the greatest riches are found in the joy of doing good work and helping others. And so, King Zayn lived the rest of his years happier and more content than ever, knowing that the wisdom he learned from Yusuf was worth more than all the treasures of the world. Lessons from the story. 1. True happiness lies in simplicity and contentment. Wealth and power alone cannot bring happiness. Rather, it comes from living wisely and being satisfied with what we have. 2. Contentment is the real wealth. When we are satisfied with what we have and live humbly, we find peace and happiness. 3. Wisdom comes from the simplest experiences. Sometimes the greatest lessons in life come from the simplest people and moments. 4. Giving and honest work are sources of happiness. When we work hard and help others, we find greater joy than in accumulating wealth. 5. Humility is the greatest virtue of a ruler. A wise and humble ruler gains the love and respect of their people, and that is the greatest success one can achieve.